Sino-Africa Joint Research Center. Chinese Academy of Sciences. And so today's presentation is about the biodiversity assessment about the Kenya succulents. So let's just partially it's just based on the Kenya project. That is a partial, we can call it a mini project from the Flora Kenya project. And so every time I visit the National Museum of Kenya, I find that we have a succulent garden, which might be one of the most favorable corner in MK. And when you stand there, you might think about how is the species diversity of the Kenyan succulents across the country, and what are they, and how do they distribute across, and what is their conservation status. So bearing these kind of two core questions, we are going to explore. Okay. You know, succulents have their own strategies to survive the harsh environments like arid or semi-arid environments. And they have their own strategy, for example, to reduce the water transpiration and to have a stronger capability to restore the water in their tissues. And so when we focus on the succulents, we might think about okay, good, thank you. We have you see, in terms of the succulents, we have multiple definitions. So that's around 400 years ago. So our human beings, actually, they love in succulents. So we have different conceptions, either from the perspective of the physiology. Others, they summarize their conception from the perspective of the horticulture. So, but now we have a more comprehensive conception about succulents, as is the plant tissues. They have a stronger capability to restore the water in their tissues, either in roots, leaves, or stems. And this kind of characters can enable plants to survive without the stable water supply, and then they still can remain some basic physiological activities. And when we back to the global, we see how the succulent species distributed. We find that there are around 13,000 species across the globe, and we recognize the 5 hotspots for their distribution, and 3 of them in Africa, mostly in South Africa, tropical East Africa, Madagascar. And in Tree of Life, we find that the succulents can be observed in multiple lineages, which indicates that they have their independent origins when they have the characters of the succulents. So, when back to Kenya, you see, we have the question, is Kenya as the center of the succulents diversity? We have this is just an example. Over the past 2 decades, we just count the new species, the new published species. We find that almost over 50% of them actually are succulents. So this would be really interesting. So, in this project, we work with our Kenya colleagues, our Kenyan students, and then the colleagues from the MK. We have these specific objectives. We have updated documentation for this succulents checklist, and to review its distribution pattern across the country, and to assess this endemism and the conservation status. So that is the roadmap. I'm not going to have more details, so just based on, basically we have our own data, either from field investigations or from online database. And so we just compile this data, and now we have the data. For example, since 2015, we have collected over 2,300 succulent collections across the country. And we compile the data from online database, GBIF, JASTOR, BRAMS, iNaturalist, and most importantly here, East African Herbarium, digitized specimens. And in total, we have 28,700 occurrence records in over 200 degrees in the country. And so this is the logic. We prepare this data and we combine them to calculate the beta diversity in this country. And so just a few examples about how this succulence looks like. And all these images we took from the field. And so first of all, this is the most the plant family with the most richness, the species number. That is the Apocynaceae, milk-white family. And we see they have really colorful flowers, and many of them they will present themselves in a charming way. You see, these colors are quite colorful and different. This is one of the reasons why they're so popular in horticulture market. And second is the aloe family, it's Asphodelaceae. And in terms of the aloe, we have multiple different growth forms. From the trees, you see we have the second one, you see this is the grass aloe, and we also have the aloe that without, we call it arborescent, without stem. And this is the stem one, the shrubby one, so quite so diverse. And we also have the Crassulaceae, represented by Kalanchoe. This is the family stonecrop family, which is also quite diverse. And also Cucurbitaceae, this is the cucumber family. And we find that even in this family, we have multiple cordyciform plants. That means that their overground tube stems have the really bizarre shape, like a stone, even this one like a diamond, really bizarre shapes, like a Momordica. This is Momordica. And also the Euphorbiaceae, the family I pay special attention. And you see even the growth forms of the euphorbia, and this is the most common one. I think that's the most common one in savanna, the Euphorbia ingens you can find. And of course, there are many others, except this succulent family with dominant species number. And we also have this one, like this is all kinds of shape. This looks like a turtle, and this is from the Acacia family. And here in East Africa, we have only one indigenous cacti, that is Rhipisalis. Epiphyte succulents can always find on the trunk of the forest. And we also have some exceptional families. We can find some examples of succulents. Latin one is the Americillaceae, could be found in Kenya coast. Actually, it's not in their surroundings, since they can be found along the seashore. So it means that there's no lack of any water supply, but because of the salt water, so that will be we call it a type of the plants as a halotype. Means that physiology, from perspective of the physiology, they lack of the water supply. And this is also the other one from Moraceae family, Dostania. And even the common family like Camelinaceae, Asteraceae, Vitaceae, and Passifloraceae, Isoaceae. And many of them actually can be found in our succulent garden in MK. And we just have for example, based on our field works and our collaboration with MK, we already published 3 new aloe species over the past decade. And the first one is the Sadium, Sadium canaensis, found in Mountain Kenya. The second one, Euphorbia windsauensis, we find in Machaco County. And the third one, they just accepted, and it was found in Lake Baringo. And there are still some more we're going to publish. And this one is the aloe, new aloe, we find in Tana River. And the most important, I think the distinctive character is the flowers. It is greenish white flower. So that's we give it a name, Veridi alba. So that means, so when you see these plants with this kind of flower, I think in Kenya, only these plants have this kind of unique character. If you find it in Tana River, then that's it. And the second one is the Dostania. We find it in Kenya coast, and this is one of them. Someone told us this group of species is the plants come from. This is the alien species actually from the other planet because of their really strange inflorescence. And most importantly, we find that it has really strong mint smell. And that character actually is really persistent, either from the field or even in cultivation. So we give it the name Menciodora, means that the mint smells, Dostania. And so we just have a quick look at what do we find based on our database. We find that there are around 500 taxons in total in the country. And they caused 56 genera in 22 families. And around 30% of them are endemic to Kenya, which is, actually this number is quite high. You see, we have the paper, we have calculate, in terms of the all vascular plants in Kenya, we have the endemism proportion like 6%. But you see, this is actually is alarmingly high at this number. So we're quite interesting for this species. We have the most dominant, like Apocynaceae, Euphorbiaceae, Asphodelaceae, Crassulaceae. And the dominant genera was represented by Euphorbia, Aloe, and Ceropegia. And in terms of we just have, you see from this map, we see the Apocynaceae, Euphorbiaceae, the most prominent families in terms of succulents, and also is consistent with the last slide. And we just have reviewed the ecological and conservation pattern. We find that the succulents have a really, actually the herb, the growth habit can be observed, have the most prominent characters in terms of the growth forms. And we find that the succulents type mostly represented by stem succulent and leafy succulent. And we surprisingly find that 79% of the Kenya succulents have not been evaluated in IUCN Red List. So that means that much work needs to be done. Yeah. And we find that the beta diversity across the country, and we find that, which is quite unique. You see, this is the one in terms of all the vascular plants. Our colleagues published in 2022. That is in terms of vascular plants. That is a paper published around 10 years ago by our colleague, Dr. Emily Wabiela. You see, they revealed a similar pattern, but you see, we just have a database based on the database of the Kenya succulents. We find that which is quite unique. You see, the northern part of Kenya, actually, they have the really high beta diversity. This kind of is really unique. And you see, in terms of the vascular plants, they are in central, in southeastern part, but in terms of the succulents, they have the prominent advantages in northern Kenya. And this is turnover dominated this beta diversity, and the nestedness remains minimal actually. So that is is a strong evidence compared with what we find based on all the vascular plants. And we also evaluate the sensitive density and the beta diversity, and we find that the turnover have the negative correlation with the elevation and the protected area, the sampling, etc. And the nestedness had a weak positive connection with these factors. And we find that the turnover is weakly negative with the topography. Based on our observation, we find that most succulents are likely dominated in arid or semi-arid environments. that's lowlands. And for protected areas and low effect observed on turnover. So we have a really strict, you see, this is the sales marked in red. Almost, we see just less than 10% they have the overlap between these with the green regions. So it means that most of the protected areas, maybe here, based on my own observations, may be established for animals or intended for other plants. But in terms of succulents, they are outside of the protected areas. And you see, we get a number, 93% of the sales. Actually, they are entirely outside of the protected area network. And so just have a quick conclusion. And so based on the slides I just shared, we find that there's an urgent need for us to have an updated checklist for the Kenyan succulents in terms of the new species and the taxonomical changes, some new synonyms, new records have been included. And we revealed that the turnover drives the species beta diversity. So this is, the message is clear, turnover plays the important role. And we recognize the 41 endemic beta diversity hotspots in the country. And 79% of the Kenyan succulents flora hotspots actually have not been, the species have not been evaluated. And we need to think about the protected areas. And in terms of succulents, we have a suggestion. We pay more attention to these community conservancies because this is based on the local government or local citizens. They have their own piece of lands. They have their shamba. You see, I think in terms of succulents, that is kind of really important priority. You see, we think about to design, to protect the areas for their conservation. And thank you for your attention, and asante sana.
Yeah, thank you very much, Nengwe, for that good presentation. We are learning that Kenya is a hotspot for succulent plants, and over 79% have never been evaluated. And then in Africa, the hotspots are the side of the Horn of Africa and in South Africa, plus a lot of information. Thank you. Our next presenter is Patrick Malonza, the National Museum of Kenya. He'll be presenting about mining and biodiversity conservation, a case study on the impacts of mine rehabilitation and habitat restoration on herpetofauna in Kwale Mine in Kenya. Herpetofauna.
Herpetofauna is a Greek word, meaning those creeping kind of organisms, and it basically refers to reptiles and amphibians. Thanks, Dennis. Sorry. Yeah, that is one of my species, the frogs. It's you can see it's let me try to open this and see. So basically, I will present on mining and biodiversity conservation. And as you are aware, mining, why is it not? I'm just wondering why it's not showing what is. Oh yes, is here. Okay, the work is by the National Museums of Kenya. I am there, Malonza. And then I also have my colleague, Joash Nyamache. And then there are those other two guys, David and Nick Okello. They have been working for the base titanium, which is an Australian company which has been mining titanium in Kwale County. So, as you know, mining is very important. Many of the countries which do mining, it's part of the economic development. But as we know, it normally has some impact, especially on the local environment, unless some appropriate mitigation measures are taken care of. And mining is not very popular in Kenya because most of what is done, because that company has been one of the largest mining company in the country. And mining, especially the common minings which we normally have in Kenya, they are maybe for construction materials and all that. And many of them, they hardly rehabilitate their habitat. And that is why in many cases you find that you have some open holes where the quarries have been done, and then you find that they become like death traps. Sometimes they are filled with water, and then people can get drowned in that. The only company in Kenya which has been doing some good rehabilitation is the Babur Cement, which is at the coast, which has been rehabilitating the quarries where they remove the material for the cement. But here is also another case of a company which also tried to do what Babur Cement factory has been doing. And the project is in Kwale. Kwale is one of the counties along the Kenyan coast. And because mining normally involves clearing the vegetation, you have to resettle people. Because where they were mining, it is people which they are just human settlements. And the kind of the work, the mining activity was just to remove the old soil, and then the company has to use a lot of water for separation of the different minerals. And those minerals, they are the ilmenite, rutile, and zircon. Those are very precious metals. And then they embarked on restoring the buffer zone where the mining was done, because one of the requirements of our National Environmental Management Authority is that you have to ensure that you leave the habitat in a condition which is close to what you found it, or even better. So this is the site. The company was doing mining between those two forest reserves, that is Gongoni and Buda, in just a small area of less than 10 square kilometers. And the process, I said, because if the process has to use a lot of water, so they had to construct a dam. And then after that, after several people, they have to clear the vegetation. And then they used hydraulic mining system to collapse the soil and then send it to the factory where the separation of the three minerals was being done. The work on the reptiles and amphibians, together with others like plants and birds and all that, started around in September 2011, and then it continued. And the buffer zones, they have been doing a lot of restoration of the buffer zone by just planting indigenous trees, because they had to start a nursery for the trees. And then when they are still doing the mining, they also started rehabilitating the parts which have been mined while they continue to do the other places. Then they had to construct silt dams, because it's just surrounding the community, so they have to construct silt dams where the water cannot, the mud and silt does not go to the local streams where the local community also use the water. And the work of rehabilitation was, they had to put topsoil. You can see this is topsoil. These are sprinklers, and this is just one of the sites close to, this is Gongoni, this is Buda Forest. So they have to do, these are some of the silt dams. And then they do, these are the place after putting the topsoil, they start with the grass and some herbs, and then they as one the process of rehabilitating. Then the dams are enriched with the wetland vegetation so that you can see they also look like natural because they have been just rehabilitated with different wetland vegetation. And some of the negative impacts, when the dam was filling, the dam had to cover a lot of habitats around, so some habitats were destroyed because they have to be submerged. But the positive impact is that you can see they also recreate within the buffer zone new wetlands, which are also enriched with wetland vegetation. And then the buffer zone also, because it was a settlement, so they had to plant some more indigenous trees so that the whole area it looks close to the original one. Then within the rehabilitated area where they mined, they also have small wetlands where also they can, the species can make use of. And basically, you look at after when the mining stopped around December 2020, we had approximately 56 species of reptiles, which is close to 62% of what is known for Shimba. And amphibians, we had 32 species, which is close to 92% of what is known for Shimba. And among these are some species which are listed in the IUCN. And these are the Shimba Spiny reed frog, the Changamwe Sicilian, and the Shimba the reed frog. Because the areas where they do the mining is very close to natural habitat, so the species can just recolonize from the adjacent habitat. But there are still others which are range restricted, like the Usambara green snake, the Usambara garter snake, and all this. This one basically were not even there. Were just recorded after the habitat started improving, especially from the buffer zones. So basically, as I said, the habitats were destroyed, but from the recreation of the new habitats, you find that they started getting the recovery and recolonization of the new microhabitats and habitat started getting in, and that is what I resorted to most of these many species, which at least the richness increased. And one important thing is that now the area is like a corridor which connects Gongoni Forest and the Buddha Forest reserves. And from the data on from apetofauna or reptiles and amphibians, we can say that the habitat is slightly, although you can't say 100%, but most of the habitats, especially the buffer zone, where the mining was not done, and the wetlands which are there, is the condition or the state of the is slightly better than the way it was, because there were many wetlands which were recreated, close to over 20 small wetlands, and the vegetation which was restored within the buffer zone, as you can say that the habitat is far much better than what it was originally. The only challenge is because the area which has been mined, because it's just mostly dominated by grassland and some trees, it's very fragile. So we can't say that, in many cases people say after rehabilitation, maybe we can go back and do some farming, but the kind of soil is so fragile that you cannot do farming in such kind of an area except the buffer zone. The only other challenge is because at least what we can say in many cases, like many other mining areas in Kenya, especially for the construction material, because the National Environment Conservation Management Authority just requires people to kind of rehabilitate, but normally that is not done, is the issue of enforcement. And the same case to this one, the mine site is supposed to be given back to Kenya Forest Service. So the issue of enforcement to ensure that there is no destruction of the mine site area is to have some enforcement of what is required by law to ensure that that fragile kind of environment doesn't go back to the state where it was, because you can have a lot of soil erosion if you have a lot of overgrazing and all that. And basically, I think that is what mine was not like that. It wasn't that long, although I don't know, because I don't know what's making the timing, but others, thank you very much and for your attention. Sorry.
Our moderator, Dennis, he's away, so I will replace his role to chair the session. And all right. Okay. Back? Okay. 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 Next presenter, Dr. Zander Kier. Okay. His topic is final geographical relationships of the freshwater crabs and in central Kenya and its relation to similar species in southern Africa highlands. Welcome.
Good morning, all. Yeah, Zedekiah Agina Okwany is my name. So my topic is on phylogeographic relationship of freshwater crabs. Those are potaminates in central Kenya, and we are comparing them with those in southern African highlands. Yeah, this work, I worked with my senior, the late Dr. Kem Githui, and the late Dr. Jane Ngaira of Jomo Kenyatta University. We also worked with Charles Waroi, Rashid Aman, and Samson Mutura of IPR, currently Kipri. So the introduction, the freshwater crabs are of the family Potamonautidae. They are endemic to Africa. And my work, I'm just comparing those ones along the Rift Valley on the west and in the east sides of Rift Valley, and then I go down to Lake Tanganyika and also to the South African highlands. These crabs mostly dwell in the highlands, and this is where we have fresh water. And they occupy the rivers, streams, and even the riparian habitats in these highlands. So you find that they do a very, very important ecological role in freshwater ecosystem because they are able to tell us the pollution. And also, in case of the disturbance of the ecological system. So you always found them in the highlands where there is fresh water. And then, as if they move down to the polluted areas, you find that most of them get extinct. The gap, there is research gap. There is limited molecular data for the Kenyan crabs, and this is one thing that pushed me to look into them. Why look at their molecular data? In the other study, I am using some of these crabs, the potamonates, in the control of the schistosoma snail vector. I'm trying to see how they can control this vector. The problem I had in that study, they are endemic to the highlands, and now the vectors of the snail vectors of schistosomiasis is found in the lowland, in the wetlands where we do the rice farming. So that took me some time, and I have been working on looking at the water quality and their possibility to survive for a short period of time in the lowland so that we can use them to control them. So that is the interest and why I went and looked into them. So I found out that there is limited molecular data for the Kenyan potamonate. The taxonomy-based, it's mainly morphology. If you move to our collection, they have the morphometric tools and the morphological data that they use to identify these crabs. But if you move to the gene bank, there is limited molecular data. And then the evolutionary relationship wasn't clear, still isn't clear, but I have tried to look into it and see what do we have in Africa and in Kenya. So the study objective here was to determine the phylogeographic relationship of the potamonates, that's freshwater crabs from central Kenya, and compare them with the population in Eastern and Southern Africa. And specifically, we are to categorize the genetic diversity, determine phylogenetic relationship, access population divergence, analyze haplotype distribution, and estimate evolutionary divergence time. And then finally, to evaluate the neutrality using Tajima-D. So this was very, very important for me to look at this, because we find that when you move to conservation and you neglect the genetic, the alleles in the population, then
for memories also, the chair of the session, I remember I was very young at ISIPE back in 2004, 5. Thank you. Yes. So I'll be presenting on the issue on rescuing the insect from the grinding core of conflicting sustainable development goals. My presentation will have the introduction if you wanted to know about me. I'm there, it has a photo, it has my curriculum. The abstract is the same one, and actually it's about what is happening. Insects are very important, everybody knows, ecosystem services, and plus many things in the economy. But there are currently reports that there's an insect apocalypse. Even yourself, if you walk around, you will see changes. When I was growing up, we used to catch grasshoppers. You walk, you find them flying all over. Check whether they are there. It tells you something. So the SDGs, actually, they are development that meets the needs of the present without compromising the ability of the future generation to meet their needs. And it has the 3 pillars: the economic development pillar, social equity, and environmental protection. And these ones have been crystallized into 17 sustainable development goals that drive the agenda of the participating nations in the United Nations. The aim of this presentation, personally, I just want to poke holes, yeah, and to trigger discussions. So to inform policy change towards new insect-conscious approaches that anchor these endangered species, the core of sustainable development agenda. Insects are all over, but there are many things going around them. Many people don't understand why insects are important. Yeah, and they are all over. You cannot ignore them. So, where are the insects in the SDGs? The key ones are on matters biodiversity. Life below water, where you find aquatic insects like that water beetle, the dragonfly, you find the larvae, the pond skater, like that. Then life on land. I like that dung beetle. That banana weevil is part of my PhD work. So I keep on reminding myself about it. So what are the expectations in the SDGs? One, the contribution of insect diversity towards economic development, social equity, and environmental protection will be appreciated through government policy formulation and implementation. We want the government to be speaking about insects. Yeah, when they say climate change, speak about insects. So there will be collaborative approaches to address matters concerning insects as part of aquatic and terrestrial biodiversity. Are we having those collaborations? And they are working very well. Then insect population diversity and diversity will increase both in aquatic and terrestrial ecosystems. Because we are doing sustainable development throughout the world, we expect that the population of the insects will increase. Then insect diversity will continue to positively contribute towards supporting, regulating, provisioning, and cultural ecosystem services. They are part of us, they are part of society. But is it the case? Then also, when we talk about sustainability, we expect that detrimental effects of insects will be mitigated for healthier ecosystems. What is now happening to the insects? One, we have global declines in insect populations and diversity. And you can see there's a lot of noise on internet. The apocalypse, insect apocalypse, there are very many papers being published, insect apocalypse, from all over the world. I don't know whether we have such a paper in Kenya. Personally, I don't see the grasshoppers I used to play with when I was young. What we are seeing also, growing insect pest problems associated with pest problems and associated with vector-borne diseases. We've seen the fall armyworm. We don't know where it came from. It has transformed how we do our agriculture. We never used to use any insecticide on maize. These days, the production costs have gone higher. We had the desert locusts. I don't know where it came from. We killed our wildlife by killing the locust. Yeah, and it created problems. Malaria is still a problem up to now. Man-hours are being lost daily because of malaria. Yeah? We have that other mess called tuta absoluta. It's making us eat a lot of pesticides in tomato. Could it be the driver to the cancers we are seeing and the kidney failures, liver problems? Because everybody eats tomato. So, also, there are societal prejudices towards insects and related studies. Because of this lack of operational knowledge about insects, I don't know whether our curricula are designed very well or not, because the insect has been there. But you find somebody in social media saying, why did you waste time studying parts of an insect? Why do you eat insect? What is important in wadudu? Yeah, this person has a mosquito net, has a spray in the, and then it puts a lot of pesticides and eats it in the maize, and then he's asking you, why study insects? Yeah? And then there's just general hatred towards insects. The moment you see an insect, squash it. That's a problem. I don't know whether insects should be made citizens so that they have their rights. So, why the negative feedback? I raised some questions using some few SDGs, which we can escalate later to a bigger issue so that we map out where the problems is. For instance, how do we produce food and ensure good health? That's SDG 2 and 3, without destroying insect biodiversity underwater and on land. How? You want to produce food, but you are using a lot of pesticides. You are killing what you are calling the pest. You are killing non-target organisms. Even the pesticide you are using, it tells you ecological effects, non-target, toxic to fish, toxic to aquatic biodiversity, but you are using it. And then also you're forgetting that you're also eating that poison, yeah? So, and the question is, even these insects, we are saying we are killing them. Could there be insect pests which have benefits? Currently, we are eating insects which are pests, including termites. So it depends on the human dimensions of how you consider the insects as a bioresource. Then also among the beneficial ones, could there be the ones that have the epidemiological effect? Because I'm seeing bias. When you see an insect, you call it a pest. Even some people cannot differentiate between a pesticide and an insecticide. So then, how does insect pest management, conservation, and utilization affect their diversity? Yeah. When you manage the insects, are you promoting the pests? Are you creating resistant strains? Are you killing the beneficial ones? Are you protecting them? When you are conserving, what are you giving them? Which ones are you trying to conserve and which ones are you not trying to have them establish? Then utilization. We are now eating insects. I'm sorry, sometimes there are stereotypes. I grew in Mombasa. We knew that fish is for people around the lake. These days, fish is eaten all over. We are soon eating these insects. But can they sustain us? Because already fish is finished in the lake. Will insects survive when we convert them into food? When people start accepting them? Where will it get them? Yeah. So, like, I'm sorry, where is it? So, how do you ensure health versus the biodiversity also? When you are spraying to kill the vectors and other things, what are you doing? are they not part of those food webs which move because they're interconnected? Because also we have amphibious organisms among the insects, yeah? Then another area where we can ask, how can we produce clean and affordable energy and implement climate action programs without destroying insect biodiversity? For instance, there's a lot of rural electrification, solar lights promoted all over. Could this be the reason we are losing insects? Because we are disrupting their nuptial dance. They want to romance. They are looking for wives, husbands, but we are putting light and confusing them. Then we pull them to one place and they are eaten by frogs which have camped around your house. So could it be a problem, this lighting system, for instance? How can we produce biofuels without interfering with physiology, ecology? Because you will establish huge plantations of monocultures, of plants which even maybe don't have value to the local biodiversity. Could it be a driver to the losses we are having? Yeah? How can we create carbon sinks through the 15 billion trees being planted? What trees are those? Which species? Which insects do they support? Are they pollinated? Why not have an innovative approach whereby you plant the trees and they produce seeds generation after generation so that they are well spaced and in space and time? Which trees are we planting? If you go to a savanna, you plant 15 billion trees, what happens to those biodiversity of the insects there? Don't we have a package which introduces the trees while being cautious of the food plants for the insects? Or are we going to have huge number of trees storing carbon, but they don't have even their pollinators, so that in the future they die off because they cannot reproduce? So, because the insects, this is the era of sustainable development goals. Even we have packaged them as Agenda 2063 for African Union, plus other packages. But still we are seeing declines in the insects. Could it be that the insect is the actual indicator organism of life? Because the insect is on land, it's in water. And it's very sensitive, that's why it's reducing. Could it be? Should we learn from the insect? If the insects are declining, what is happening to us? Are we becoming stronger? Healthier? Or we are becoming so many, we are saying overpopulation, but this is a very weak population that cannot survive the stressors of the environment, climate change and other things, yeah? So, these two SDGs, they touch on the environmental quality, yeah? Which can be linked to other SDGs, the way I presented. We want insect biodiversity in water and they are indicators. But the way we are implementing the other SDGs, we are affecting this. And we are also part of biodiversity. So are we moving anywhere with these SDGs? Or we should do away with them? Or we should repackage them? So implementation of SDGs will therefore depend on compatible partnerships and practices driven by new policy frameworks to save insect biodiversity. This is an appeal. I don't know how I can reach to all those heads of state. I don't know how to tell His Excellency President Ruto, this is what we should be speaking about. When you build affordable housing, where will the insect pollinator be? Have you created somewhere the insect will survive? Yeah? When you create your road, where is the insect in all those things? Yeah? When you say SHA, the insect is there. In fact, malaria is taking most of the SHA. Yeah? And it's insect-borne. So it's an appeal. In case you will do a report, there is need for policy change towards new insect conscious approaches that anchor these endangered species to the core of the Sustainable Development Agenda. And I'm calling insects endangered species not because of ICN classification. Already we know globally they are going down. At home, there are no grasshoppers. Chicken, you have to feed chicken on your own meal. They used to move around and come back and share. So, I acknowledge that. Thank you.
I think if insects could have a lawyer, doctor would be their lawyer.
Yes, I agree completely. But I want to thank you for bringing insects to the fore and bringing a new thinking to most of us. We've just seen insects as small things you need to get rid of.
You crash.
Yeah, you crush them, you spray them. But thank you very much. I think this has really brought a new thinking, isn't it? So now we need to react to his presentation for maybe in another 5 minutes because he's rapporteuring a different section. He just took time out. So please, let's have, I saw a lot of people making notes. Let's have some reaction.
Yeah.
Yes, we'll start with you. Who is next? Yes, oh, there's a lot. Do you want to sit or you are still defending the insects?
No,
A lot of them
I'm an insect advocate. I've been given that job, so I'm trying to learn the gaps. So I'll appreciate.
Yeah, so we'll start with you.
Prof,
Yes,
yes, I'm Freddy Kawur,
yes,
National Museums of Kenya. I'm more worried.
Yo.
I'm worried.
yes.
This is a statement that don't know. He introduced himself as one of the policymakers, and at the same time telling us having lights at different points interferes with the life of what? And the insects. And at the same time talking about the compatibility and compatibility partnership policy. I don't know. I don't want him to react, but if he's able to react, then he's okay. Can he come up with another one policy of not having lights somewhere so that we have the insects around?
First of all, I'm not a policy maker directly. I'm standing here in the role of an advocate
He's trying to influence.
to influence so that that discussion can come up.
Yes, that's what he said.
Yeah.
Then this light,
That light.
It's
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. Could it be, for instance, if implemented very well, if you've been outside, the way the president is coming the policy of affordable housing, the thinking is that all of us who are not farmers or foresters, we are going to live in that place so that insects can establish. So you'll not have lights scattered all over, even inside Karura Forest, Kakamega Forest, you have lights all over.
another one you're saying
So that-
areas for the wildlife and not interfering much of their habitat areas. That's what you're talking
Yeah.
about.
That's food for thought. That's food for thought. Let's take one from the back. We'll be able to, if we keep them brief, we'll be able to handle most of the questions or comments. Yes, sir.
Thank you for the opportunity. My name is James Mashori from the African Academy of Sciences. I'm one among those who are familiar with knowledge.
Yes.
One thing I have a problem with the researchers is not having the understanding that when you are working around your research, you need the whole team to start the journey with you. So he asked a very good question. And what you said you are not a policymaker. But at the same time, you want your research to influence the change through the policymakers. What were you doing in the initial stages of your research to ensure that once you are done with your research, it can actually influence the change or reach the policy framework? One part that misses out, I'm saying because we fund researchers across Africa, and we question, well, they have very good research, but you still have the mentality of just working around research products, the publications. In your mind, you don't look at it that after this research, how else is it going to impact the entire society? So the impactation that you're supposed to make is through the stakeholders. You must identify the stakeholders who are the primary consumers of your research, including those ones who are stepping on those small insects. so that they get the information, and then you get to know how are you able to bring them on board and what kind of information are they supposed to receive so that they are informed.
Yeah.
So that is where we go wrong. We want just to shine with the research, but in terms of dissemination, we have to start from
Okay.
the beginning.
Maybe I'll clarify.
Yes.
If you heard when I was beginning, I said this is my inaugural point of entry as the convener of policy and advocacy. It's a new area I'm going through. And whatever I'm presenting what AKE now should go as a team. It has all those fields and all those networks. So, and that's why you're seeing even the logo of AKE there. Yeah. So, it is the first time AKE has such a docket. And this is the first time we are trying. So that how now can we move from research to policy? There's a lot. That's why I need some training also. But the most important thing is to throw first a stone into the bees.
Thank you. And I think what is making me happy is that AAS is already there. So I think that conversation now can move very, very smoothly.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
And I
So,
invite you in the next cohort where I still make proposals to advance your research. That way maybe you'll have money to do policy influence.
Thank you.
excellent. And there are many witnesses that have had that statement. So I continue moving down the line. Who is next? Were you putting your hand up? Yeah.
I just do what you can because I put the hand up.
No, it's okay. We can move systematically. Everyone will get a chance. Yes.
My name is Eunice. My name is